You speaking.
News, talk, music, get it all
24 hours
on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and Accra. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM in Dakar, Senegal, and worldwide at wadr.org. We're also live on Facebook and on YouTube. I am Atia Winimbila. Here are headline stories. Nigeria's National Assembly renews demands for action against banditry attacks on schools.
The National Assembly and the executive arm must, without further excuse or delay, commence full implementation of this House-adopted resolution on a decentralized and regional security architecture.
But beyond the rhetoric, what tangible measures are in place to protect lives and property? We'll bring you some analysis. Benin and Burkina Faso agree to deepen security and economic cooperation. Also in the bulletin, public reactions to Senegal's political impasse continue as PASTEF leader Ousmane Sonko denounces alleged attempts to remove him as Speaker of Parliament.
Even as I speak, people are scheming to obtain a ruling from the Constitutional Council in an attempt to reverse this mandate, which is unacceptable.
And religious leaders in Côte d'Ivoire called for consensual and inclusive electoral framework ahead of future polls. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and many more.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Thanks once again for joining us. Now we start the bulletin in Nigeria, where the National Assembly has once again raised alarm over the rising wave of banditry targeting schools. Since the beginning of the year, armed groups have abducted hundreds of school children, often demanding hefty ransoms for their release. Now, in the latest incident, several pupils and 7 teachers were abducted in Nigeria's southwestern Oyo state. Already, the Nigeria Union of Teachers has declared an indefinite strike in the state, demanding action to return the abductees safely, and now the Senate is doing same. From Abuja, Yechenu Sasetu reports.
At the Senate, lawmakers have strongly condemned the latest incident, calling on security agencies to intensify efforts to secure the release of the victims and prevent further attacks on schools. Senate President Godswill Akpabio also urged political actors to avoid politicizing the country's security challenges.
For as long as those children remain in captivity, our nation remains captive with them. We mourn because a nation that cannot guarantee the safety of its teachers weakens the very foundation upon which education rests.
Meanwhile, at the House of Representatives, lawmakers adopted a motion sponsored by Ayodeji Alao Akala, who represents the Ogbomosho North, Ogbomosho South, and Orire Federal Constituency in Oyo State.
The National Assembly and the executive arm must, without further excuse or delay, commence full implementation of this House-adopted resolution on a decentralized and regional security architecture, the creation of state police, local government policing units, centralized courts, and an integrated national intelligence and surveillance network.
The Oyo incident, which resulted in the abduction of several pupils and 7 teachers, adds to a growing wave of attacks on educational institutions across the country. Security experts warn that without decisive action, continued attacks on schools could further weaken access to education and heighten fear among parents, teachers, and students nationwide. For WADR, Yechenu Sasetu in Abuja.
Well, the information we are getting from Nigeria is that the presidency has announced a set of measures to effectively tackle the growing insecurity across the country. Of course, this is in reaction to the growing concerns from the teachers, from the Senate, and we're going to deeply analyze basically what all of this means and the implications of it. My colleague Abdullahi Hassan joins me in studio. He's been monitoring this keenly over many years, Abdullahi.
Indeed.
And I want us to start from, of course, we'll look at the latest action from the presidency. policy. But I want us to start from what we're seeing, the changing trend in Nigeria, because we know that Nigeria's insecurity first began in the northeast with the Boko Haram insurgency that was in Borno State.
Very well.
Now, years later, it went into banditry in the north central part, and today we're having kidnappings in southwest region. Tell us, how did we get here?
Very well. Good afternoon, Tewin, and good afternoon to you out there listening on radio and live
on YouTube and on Facebook.
Yes. So very well, like you rightly said, that Tewin, the spread of insecurity in Nigeria did not start today. First was in the northeast as far back as 2009. But it became a full-blown case in 2015, and from there, there's a gradual shift from the northeast to the north-central states of Benue, Plateau, Nasarawa, Taraba, and the north-central states of Abuja, Plateau, Kaduna. And as at the time, security agencies and agents and analysts had warned that there's a gradual shift. However, in these other parts of the country, not in the northeast, it wasn't more like terrorism. It was banditry.
Okay.
So they would basically attack travelers and vulnerable communities and abduct them for heavy ransom. But this also was possible, I think, because Nigeria is a large country, and usually security presence were very much concentrated in the capital cities.
I see.
But then you have porous border areas, you have rural communities where there is absolutely no state presence.
So these bandits saw that gap and took advantage of it.
That. And crossing over from the north to the southwest today, where you have Oyo, Ekiti, Ondo, and the rest of them, they're very much a tropical area.
So there's a lot of forest cover? Is that the case?
A lot of forest covers, a lot. And that's because also they farm cocoa around there. So it was very easy for them to migrate through the back end of this state, which also do share border with countries like Benin around the southwest. And then the northeast, you have Nigeria bordering Niger and Chad. In the northeast, you have Chad as well, Niger. So it was easy for armed groups to migrate freely,
to cross borders, commit crimes and go back, if that is the case.
Exactly. And because of the economic pressure as well, it was very easy for these armed groups to recruit young people who are under economic pressure because of the rise in unemployment and the rising cost of living. So this has been coming, but the government was not proactive, they were rather reactive. So they will wait until something happens
before they act. And that seems very similar to what we're having now, because we are having this kidnapping in Oyo State, and now we're having the presidency announcing a new set of measures, which also sounds quite reactive. What has been done in the past that is necessitating what we're having a change in strategy now?
So basically, right from the days of former late President Muhammadu Buhari, he spent 8 years. Before him was Goodluck Jonathan, and after him is Bola Ahmed Tinubu. They've basically all announced the same policies, the same initiative, the same measures, but implementation has been the problem. So one among this proposal was for Nigeria to have what we call the state police, to allow state governments or governors have their own security outfits to manage their own states, because they can only do better if you have people who understand the terrain, the nature of the people, how they communicate, what they look like to tackle the local crisis they have. Already, some of these states were battling their own form of insecurity before all of this really exploded, right? And then there was a proposal also for certain states to have official grazing lands, because one of the reasons for this also, many have said, is climate change, the impact of climate change, right? In addition to that, also there were recommendations that Nigeria should decentralize the security architecture. So instead of waiting for all the army officers and police officers at the state and local government level to take orders from the top,
it should come from the local level.
Yes, so but some of this have not really worked. Plus, also you now have that this police force was really outstretched. You have half of these people providing VIP services to governors and their wives and their kids.
That the situation is very complicated,
they were recorded last
isn't
year,
it?
but still it wasn't enough.
I see. Well, very complicated situation. Thanks so much for that analysis. We will continue to have this conversation in subsequent bulletins and also on several programs that we do have, which look at matters of security and governance on West Africa Democracy Radio. Thank you very much, Abdullahi Hassan. Let's stay on to matters dealing with security. This time round, Benin and Burkina Faso, they have agreed to deepen cooperation across several sectors, including diplomacy, trade, and security. The commitments came on the backdrop of a visit by President Romuald Wadani of Benin to Burkina Faso, where he met his counterpart, Captain Ibrahim Traore. Augustine Colley has more in this report.
Benin's President Romuald Wadani arrived in Burkina Faso on Tuesday, just days after his inauguration. During talks with the Burkinabe transitional president, Captain Ibrahim Traore, discussions focused largely on the security crisis affecting the two neighboring countries. The final communique was read by Burkina Faso's Foreign Minister, Karamoko Jean-Marie Traoré.
The two heads of state emphasized the urgent need to strengthen cooperation, solidarity, and consultation between neighboring countries in the face of common threats, particularly terrorism, organized cross-border crimes, and all forms of violent extremism.
Beyond security issues, Wadani and Traoré also discussed improving diplomatic and economic relations between Cotonou and Ouagadougou.
On economic issues, the two heads of state welcomed the potential and promising prospect for cooperation in areas such as trade, industry, craftsmanship, technical and vocational training, transport, infrastructure, logistics, transit, and the promotion of investment.
To translate the commitments made in Ouagadougou into concrete action, Burkina Faso and Benin will convene the fifth section of their joint commission in the coming days.
That report was by Augustine Colley. The details provided by Martin Kaba in Ouagadougou.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let's now talk politics because reactions continue to pour in regarding Senegal's political tensions. Now, relations between President Diomaye Faye and Ousmane Sonko remain tense after Faye dismissed Sonko from the position of Prime Minister and Sonko swiftly returned as National Assembly President. In his latest address, Sonko has been raising concerns about what he describes as attempts to remove him from his current position in Parliament. His statement comes just a day after a new government was announced by the presidency.
7 portfolios in a government of 30 ministers, with not a single sovereign ministry allocated to PASTEF. And among these 7, there were 3 individuals whom we no longer considered representatives of PASTEF because they disregarded the party's directive and responded on an individual basis. As far as we are concerned, we have nothing to gain from joining this government. We spent 2 years in the Prime Minister's office with a government that was largely composed of PASTEF members, and our record is overwhelmingly positive.
Even
as I speak, people are scheming to obtain a ruling from the Constitutional Council that would be the most unprecedented decision ever issued by that institution, in an attempt to reverse this mandate, which is unacceptable because from 2016 to now, the same institutions, the same bodies, and the same levers have been used to conspire against me. And clearly, given the current setup, these are the same practices that are intended to continue.
You heard there Ousmane Sonko. He's a leader of the ruling PASTEF and president of the National Assembly. Now, we have been getting some reactions on social media. My colleague Imo Edit joins me in studio briefly to take us through what people have been saying regarding this impasse and the latest statement by Sonko. Imo, what's going on?
Well, thank you for having me. Well, a whole lot is buzzing on social media right now, and people have been commenting, analyzing the press briefing of the PASTEF party yesterday.
Yes.
And we do have thousands of comments. And,
thousands?
Yes. So if I say, let me read 1,000, maybe we'll sleep
here.
Give
us 2.
Well, let me just tell you.
Give us 2. It's midday.
Now, the most important one that also attracted like 500 responses was from DM Bagese, and he says, this loyalty is a contagious disease. Such is what is playing out among the party members. And the most interesting one is the fact that from Amandi Yapo1 says that is just barreling straight into the wall with chronic instability as the key. Now, the way things are headed promises to be very, very juicy. So this gives us what will play out in the coming days as this too. You remember, I mean, people have been also saying that it was just when these two were going to fall apart. Yes, they like the collaboration, but would they be able to sustain that collaboration for the next 5 years? And this is what we're seeing.
And it looks like everybody is keen to see what will happen.
It's the most talked about political situation in the sub-region right now.
Well, listeners, you can interact with us on our X platform. That's where these comments are coming on at WADR English, and we'll definitely read those comments. Let's remain in Senegal because works to restructure and reorganize governance following the emergent rivalry between these two, which is the President, Diomaye Faye, and now the Parliament President, Ousmane Sonko. The security community is analyzing Senegal's nominated candidate to head the ECOWAS Commission. Now, Biram Diop is a former army chief and former minister of army in Senegal. He was announced by the presidency as the chosen candidate for the regional role. So WADR has been speaking to Dr. Oje Ojowole to find out what all of this means and what the implications are.
Except we want to deceive ourselves. ECOWAS is in a state of war now. Nigeria, which is the most significant partner in the entire architecture in terms of population, economic size, and otherwise, has been battling protracted terrorism for almost 15 years now or more. And at the same time, we are now seeing this speculating into regions and countries that have either been peaceful. And the implication of that is that the ECOWAS need to demonstrate that preparedness, the capability to be able to now walk the talk, because there has been a protracted conversation around establishing a counter-insurgency standby force. You need somebody who is also skilled in that area to be able to drive. In fact, I believe above regional integration, which has been the foundational pillar and pursuit of ECOWAS in the last 50 years or more, now security agenda must drive initiative, because if there is no security in the region, even regional integration is going to become extremely problematic. So security provides the umbrella for other pillars that ECOWAS want to pursue in the region.
You heard there Dr. Oje Ojewole. He is a researcher at the International Security Studies. Let's now bring you some other stories. In Côte d'Ivoire, Catholic bishops are calling for a consensual and inclusive electoral framework ahead of future polls. Now, this appeal was made at the end of their 129th Ordinary Plenary Assembly held in St. Paul's Cathedral in Abidjan. In their final communique, the bishops took note of the dissolution of the Independent Electoral Commission and urged that any new electoral system should not be politicized. Christopher Aticho completes the story.
While welcoming the dissolution of the Independent Electoral Commission (CEI), which they view as a response to concerns raised by several actors in the country's political landscape, the bishops encouraged the authorities to continue this reform process in the spirit of listening, dialogue and consultations with all the nation's stakeholders. According to Bishop Joseph Aka, such an approach would help reassure political actors and strengthen citizens' confidence in the institutions of the Republic. The prelate further noted that this direction would contribute to fostering trust among political stakeholders and reinforcing public confidence in state institutions. In conclusion, the bishops called on all national actors to work together to build a Côte d'Ivoire, in their own words, founded on justice, peace, fraternity, and social cohesion.
That was a report by Abidjan correspondent Marcel Ariston Blay, voiced by Christopher Ticho. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM in Dakar, Senegal, worldwide at wadr.org. We're also live on Facebook and on YouTube. Here's a recap of our top stories. Nigeria's National Assembly renews demands for action against banditry attacks on schools. Benin and Burkina Faso agree to deepen security and economic cooperation. Public reactions to Senegal's political impasse continue as PASTEF leader Sonko denounces alleged attempts to remove him as Speaker of Parliament. And just gone by, religious leaders in Côte d'Ivoire calling for consensual and inclusive electoral framework ahead of future polls. Still ahead in the bulletin, we have press review, guest interview, and sports. Stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Today's press review takes us to Banjul, the Gambian capital, where Sang Donald Mendy is standing by with major headlines from national dailies.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Hello and welcome to the press review coming to you from Banjul. We begin today's review with the Standard newspaper, which is reporting this morning that government to investigate allegations against former army chief. The government says it will investigate allegations of corruption, misconduct and abuse of office involving a former army chief. The move follows growing calls for accountability, with authorities pledging to establish the facts and take appropriate action if wrongdoing is found. Teachers suspend protest after ministry commits to resolving pay and promotion dispute. And QTV journalist attacked by armed robbers. We now turn to Forea for some of the other stories making headlines this morning. Banjul residents link rising theft to persistent NOEC blackout. Many residents argue that prolonged blackout leaving neighborhoods in darkness for hours, creating opportunities for criminals to operate unnoticed. Community members are calling on the National Water and Electricity Company and security authorities to address the situation urgently. After Tobaski, farmers fear rising costs as new farming season nears. And finally, our last stop this morning is The Point newspaper. Gala threatens nationwide protest if NOEC fails to stabilize electricity by mid-June. Gambians Against Looted Assets has threatened to organize nationwide protest if the country's electricity situation does not improve by mid-June. Barrow, Dabo call for peace and unity as election year begins. And beyond the Gambia, a regional political story also makes the front page as Faye pushes dupe for the ECOWAS top job while his rift with Sonko deepens at home. And that's a roundup of the major stories making headlines in the Gambian newspapers this morning. Back to you in the studios.
Thank you very much, Sang Donald Mendy, for bringing us those headlines from the dailies.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
And definitely we are in Nigeria talking about the security situation because the recent abduction of 46 students and 7 teachers in southwest Oyo State has sparked outrage across the country, triggering nationwide protests by teachers who are demanding better protection in schools and urgent action from authorities. And I'm sure parents feel the very same way. For many educators, this is no longer an isolated incident. It is part of a growing pattern that is putting both students and teachers at risk and raising serious questions about how safe schools really are. Well, we have been speaking to Ramatu Ada Ochikele. She is the founder and portfolio director of Shades for Us.
So it is such a terrible situation because there seems to be that lackadaisical attitude from the government where, for example, with the kidnapping of the student in Oyo, no concrete statement is given by the government until a few days ago, almost 3 weeks after the children were kidnapped. You constantly have to things. Most times we have our nerves free because we're constantly demanding accountability, constantly telling the government to do what is right. And if they had done this, say, 2014 or in 2015 or even earlier this year, we would not have had the situation that we have at this moment. People are worried, not just parents. Children are worried. I just went to an outreach right now, and I was the community, the school was close to the mountains, and I kept wondering, if we hear of an outbreak, what is going to happen? I could easily leave because it wasn't my community, but those children had to live in that community, and they're exposed to the element have become so emboldened because they know that ransom will be paid to them, either from the government or from the family of the children. And they know that nothing will be done in the real sense of the word. Now, I must admit that the government has reportedly said that they have sent so many people to address the situation, that there has been deploying, or rather they're going to train 1,000 forest guards according to the president and what have you. But these things do not seem concrete enough in the reality of things. So we are now at a place where students are afraid to go to parents are afraid to send their children to school, and it's so much worse.
Let me just come in here. Nigeria has the world's highest number of out-of-school children. I mean, with estimates ranging from around 10 to even 18 million. Don't you think this will further worsen school attendance, especially in vulnerable communities where these kidnappings are taking place?
With the issues that are happening in the southwest, in the southeast, the northwest, in the north central, the northeast, it means that we would have more children who do not go to school. And not going to school is not the problem in itself. It is just a slight problem. The problem in itself is what the ripple effects will be. You have a generation of children who are unable to get education, who are unable to contribute to the society. And what is worse, we're beginning to have a generation of children who think that kidnapping is okay. It's just one way to make money, meaning that you are building a generation of people who do not value human life, who do not value nationality, who do not value advancement as a nation, and who think the quick fix they can get is what they should do to get money. So we are in a dire situation.
You heard there Ramatu Ada Ochekliye, founder and portfolio director of advocacy organization Shades for Us, and she was speaking to my colleague Imo Edit. Let's not be sports. Senegal have been crowned champions of the Under-17 Africa Cup of Nations after defeating Tanzania 4-2 and penalties following a 1-1 draw in a tense and closely contested final. The young Lions of Teranga showed resilience and composure under pressure, holding their nerve in the shootout to secure a historic continental title. Now, this win further strengthens Senegal's growing reputation as a dominant force in African football across both youth and senior levels. Fans across the country are celebrating and what many describe as another proud moment for Senegal in the continental stage, and we look forward to watching them, that is a senior team, in the World Cup. And we have come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio. We have been broadcasting in Dakar, Senegal. We have also been live at wadr.org on Facebook and on YouTube. Thanks very much for listening. Thanks very much to Mustafa Sek for the technical assistance. Do continue to interact with us across platforms, X, Instagram, and Facebook at WADR English. Coming up is a rebroadcast of our gender program 50/50, and expect news in French info chez vous at 1 p.m. I am Atiye Winimbila. Good afternoon.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County, and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Baft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening to Newslink.